Before we get started, I have a number of folks that have asked to speak to the council tonight. And to get the speaking order organized, I need to know what item number, and I'll just take a guess, and if you're out, I'll say your name and what item I think you want to speak on. And give me a yes or no, or tell me what item so we can get them properly organized, because there was one item that will be not at the end of the meeting, but we'll open it to the public for that specific item. So it looks like Todd Wren from Santa Rita Street, Sierra Vista. Todd Ryan. And you can address us tonight?
Yes.
And it says Vets Park and West End, so that'll be at the end.
You got it.
Okay. Ryan Bushnell, is that item number?
The zoning change.
The zoning change, okay, I got you. Mike Myers, Moonglow LLC, is that what it? Zoning change, okay. It looks like, is it Carl Full Line? You 418 Sunrise Circle? Is that the zoning change?
Yes.
Okay. And then Lawrence Haru, it says I can't read it, demonstration. Nonprofit demonstration. Okay, and you'll be at the end too. Okay. Thank you for your help. We got a full council.
We did.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Sierra Vista City Council meeting for February 11th, 2021. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Rick Mueller,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Rachel Gray,
Present.
Councilmember William Benning,
Present.
Councilmember Gregory Johnson,
Present.
Councilmember Angelica Landry,
Present.
Councilmember Sarah Pacheco,
Present.
Councilmember Carolyn Umphrey.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mrs. Adams. Tonight, we'll start as usual with the invocation and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, the invocation will be led by President Dan Hawes, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, followed immediately by the pledge led by Councilman Johnson. Please rise as you're able.
Our Father in heaven, as we gather to start this city council meeting today, we humbly express our gratitude to Thee for Thy abundant mercy and grace. Our hearts are pained for those who have been afflicted by the COVID pandemic. We pray that Thy tender mercies and comfort may rest upon all those who have been afflicted with this sickness, for those who have suffered economically, and most especially for those who have lost family or friends. We pray that Thou wouldst open the way for us to be freed from this plague that afflicts us. However, we are very grateful for all the tender mercies that we do enjoy, and we are deeply grateful for the Constitution of our country, which protects our inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And inasmuch as Thou hast granted us the privilege of forming a government that is of the people, by the people, and for the people, we ask Thee to enlighten this council with Thy wisdom and light, and that the Spirit of truth may rest upon all the discussions here today. And we send up this prayer of thanks and our petition for grace and guidance in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in a pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, President Hawes, and thank you, Councilman Johnson.
Mr. Mayor, is the microphone on? Because it doesn't seem like the microphones are on. Do we have to make sure that they're on, please?
They're on.
Okay, well, they're not very loud.
Well, they're not broadcast. They shouldn't be broadcasting to the people in the room. So I'm not sure if you need a special hookup or not.
Okay, well, I just thought they would be a little louder. That's okay, that's okay.
We can certainly check that with us for future events, so we get it right, please. Okay, item number one, Mr. Benning, acceptance of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the agenda for the regular city council meeting of February 11, 2021 be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any additions? corrections or anything else to add, additions?
No.
Seeing nothing, I'll call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We next move on to awards and presentations. Normally, we have awards and presentations and call folks that have completed their tour of service with commissions. And rather than having them here and presenting them in person because of COVID, we changed the protocol. We've already mailed their certificates and letters of appreciation to them, but I do want to make a mention of their names here tonight. First, we start with the Planning and Zoning Commission, the late David P. Thompson, who we will miss. Sharon Lake and Stephen J. Miller. From the Parks and Rec Commission, Misty Persenio and Glenn Holman. So thank you for your service. And we encourage folks to apply to the number of commissions we have so they can provide input, public input to the city. That concludes the awards and presentation. We now move to the city manager report. Mr. Patuchik.
Thank you, Mayor Mueller, members of the council. Your next regularly scheduled work session is scheduled for February 23rd, 3 p.m., and that will be here in the council chambers. A reminder that city offices will be closed Monday, February 15th, in observance of President's Day. Most notably, refuse service will change. The Monday service will occur on Tuesday. Tuesday service will occur on Wednesday. Thursday and Friday service is not affected, and there will be no special pickups then on Wednesday as a result. A few projects tonight. The airport apron taxiway J rehabilitation project was released yesterday, and bids are due on March 16th. The request for qualifications for nonprofits to run the Better Bucks program has been posted on the city's website, and responses will be accepted through March 2nd. The Community Development Block Grant, Soldier Creek Park and James Landwehr Plaza improvements will be accepted until noon on February 19th, so that's next Friday. And the street maintenance, pavement patching, crack, and sand seal will be released in the papers tomorrow, and bids are due on March 5th. Also, the police department locker room remodel contract was awarded to Grail Construction, and that will be kicking off soon if it hasn't already. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you, Mayor Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Patuchik. Any questions for Mr. Patuchik on his report, council members?
No, sir.
Okay, hearing none. We'll continue with the consent agenda. Item number 2, Dr. Landry.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the consent agenda consisting of the regular city council meeting minutes of January 14th, 2021, resolution 2021-008, appointment of George N. Fisher Jr. to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and resolution 2021-009, appointment of Rachel Gray, Carolyn Umphrey, and Sarah Pacheco to the Sierra Vista Metropolitan Planning Organization Board of Directors be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on these items?
Just a comment.
Comment?
So I'd just like to say that, as the mayor mentioned, Mr. Thompson, who was on the planning and zoning, passed away, which is why we're having to appoint Mr. Fisher, who is, he applied and was recommended for approval. But Mr. Thompson gave a great deal of his time to the city and to planning and zoning, so he will be missed.
Add a comment of I've enjoyed 2 years on Sierra Vista Metropolitan Planning Organization. It's interesting to work with transportation. It's a new to me at the time, it certainly, and so so thanks for that recommendation, Mayor. Continued confidence there, so that's all.
Any other discussion or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move to public hearing items. Item number 3, Ms. Pacheco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that resolution 2021-010, a new license, limited liability type of ownership for Series 12 liquor license for Martha Carrillo on behalf of 143 Street Tacos Carniceria LLC be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Adams, may we have the staff report, please?
Mayor Mueller, members of council, as mentioned in the motion, this is an application filed by Martha Carrillo on behalf of 143 Street Tacos for a Series 12, which is a restaurant liquor license. The posting of this public hearing, which is required by statute, was placed on the building on January 15th. It has been over the required 20 days and no comments have been received pro or con. The police department has done a background check on Ms. Carrillo and has no objection to this application moving forward. If approved tonight, it will be returned to the State Liquor Board for final action tomorrow.
Any questions for Mrs. Adams on her report? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Now we move on to, item number 4. Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that ordinance 2021-001, proposed text amendment to Sierra Vista Development Code, section 151.22.006, matrix of use permissions by zoning district, manufactured home residence district, to permit up to 30% of the total lots in a manufactured home subdivision to have recreational vehicles be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. McLaughlin, may we have the staff report, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The public hearing this evening is on an amendment application brought forward by a resident of the Cloud 9 Ranch Estate subdivision located south of Highway 90, east of Avenida del Sol. The request involves a one-sentence text change to the Manufactured Home Residence District, or MHR for short. That would allow up to 30% of the lots within a manufactured home subdivision to have recreational vehicles for dwelling purposes. The MHR boundaries cover both manufactured home subdivisions and manufactured home parks. I shared with you the distinction in the definition at the work session on Tuesday. You'll recall one is a platted subdivision with lots that are individually owned for the placement of single-family dwelling units, either site-built homes or manufactured homes that are on lots that are 4,500 square feet or greater, much like a traditional neighborhood. A manufactured home park, on the other hand, is a property under single ownership that is used as a location for 2 or more manufactured homes that are or intended to be occupied as dwellings on lots which are not conveyable. Tenants lease the ground space and reside in a unit that they own or is provided by the property owner for rent. Like an apartment complex, there are often commonly shared amenities and maintenance. Landscaping and perimeter buffering is required for site plan approval. Manufactured home parks are on large, relatively insulated and self-contained properties. The request under consideration applies only to manufactured home subdivisions. 3 neighborhoods are affected by this proposal. They are Cloud 9 Ranch Estates, Solger, and the incorporated portions of Fry Town Site. They are illustrated in blue on Exhibit A in our staff report and displayed on the overhead. There are 352.
Your overhead just went out. There we go. Thank you.
There are 352 parcels of land within the amendment area, and if approved, up to 106 of the existing platted lots would be eligible for use by recreational vehicles. The code requires attention to how an amendment benefits the general welfare of the community. With respect to public safety, site-built homes are inspected and approved by the city for compliance with local building codes. Manufactured homes are inspected and certified by HUD, while the city oversees the installation pursuant to an IGA with the state. RVs are exempt from HUD's manufactured home construction and safety standards as they are intended for recreational use. And as I mentioned, we're aware that there is a segment of society who prefer to live in their RV year-round out of necessity or preference. Traditionally, local zoning laws confine their use to campground and park settings, which is the case here in every other jurisdiction that we researched across the state. The code also asks us to consider whether the request furthers the purpose of the development code. The MHR district regulations are designed to stabilize and protect the residential character of the neighborhood, promote and encourage the family environment, and prohibit all incompatible activities. The request is not compatible with this purpose and intent. Allowing RVs as a primary use in an existing developed neighborhood could fundamentally alter the character and quality of the areas the city has spent many years and vast sums of public tax dollars trying to revitalize. It is not what people have bought into. People have purchased lots and constructed site-built or manufactured homes. They have an investment-backed expectation that permanent dwellings will be required. It's also important to consider that the city's definition encompasses RVs of all shapes, sizes, ages, and complexions, from pop-up trailers and truck campers to Class A motor coaches. The proposal would also allow any type of recreational vehicle to be used as a living unit, either by the owner or a renter on a full-time basis. Again, no city permit or inspection would be required because a recreational vehicle is not regarded as a building. By law, recreational vehicles are limited to 400 square feet. Consequently, there are other factors to consider that may come with RVs as permanent dwelling units, such as the exterior storage and accumulation of personal belongings and makeshift porch additions and carports to expand their footprint. Not good for property values. And a perimeter stockade fence does not cure these concerns. It undermines the intent of fostering neighborhood family environment espoused by the code. We are also mindful of the fact that there's a class of landlord in this town that could take advantage of this ordinance to provide a substandard level of rental housing. By law, amendments must be consistent with the city's adopted general plan. The housing and neighborhoods element calls upon the city to promote quality, affordable rental and owner-occupied housing, revitalize target areas, build strong neighborhoods, develop high-quality housing developments. Staff finds that the proposed amendments are contrary to achieving these goals. Moreover, we find that the request will hinder the city's stated goal of fostering infill and redevelopment in the Cloud 9 and West End planning areas. This claim is supported by the protest petition that you received. The code lays out 3 basic questions that must be satisfied for a text amendment to be approved. First, has an applicant demonstrated the need and justification for the change? You have the written statements provided to you in Attachment A and any testimony offered to you this evening to consider in this regard. Secondly, is the amendment consistent with the general plan, and does it further the purposes of the development code and other city ordinances and regulations? Thirdly, will the amendment benefit the general welfare of the community? If it constitutes the granting of a special privilege to an individual owner, the amendment should be denied. We are obligated to exercise equal treatment under the law. Spot zoning is an illegal form of rezoning. This request needs to be considered on an area-wide basis, taking into account all 3 neighborhoods. Based on the findings and conclusions provided in our staff report, we recommend that the applicant's request be denied. You have a copy of the meeting minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission that resulted in a 3-1 denial vote. On top of that, a written protest petition has been filed that meets the threshold in the code that triggers the supermajority approval requirement by council. This means that 6 votes of approval are required for passage. That concludes my presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matt. I'm going to ask you to sit down, and we're going to hear from the public first. I'm going to open this up to the public. And again, I want to apologize to this gentleman because I'm having trouble reading his name, but the gentleman that lives on Sunrise Circle. Sir, if you'd come up, and I'll use you as a guinea pig if you don't mind. Can you spell me your name, please?
Ken Farland.
Ken?
Kenneth Farland, and
Ken Farland.
I have
okay.
lived on Sunrise Circle since 1980.
Sir, may I just talk a minute? Before we start counting your 5 minutes, everybody has 5 minutes to address the council. We have these little fancy lights up here, if you can get them again. They'll start over here, everything will be green, then it'll go down to yellow, and when you get to the end, it'll be red, and it'll start
shut up.
flashing, and I'll ask you to conclude your remarks at that time.
Okay.
Okay, so everybody who's coming up, that's how we operate here. So, sir, please.
Okay, I have lived in Cloud Nine since 1980. I went through a divorce in 78, and I was looking for a place to live, and a friend of mine who became a realtor said, I have a beautiful little place on a lot in Cloud Nine. I said, I don't want to live someplace where I don't own the land. I went and looked at it. There was fruit trees, everything there. So I bought it. And my lady friend who became my wife that year, we moved in. Back in 94, we put a double-wide manufactured home in. They were called mobile homes when I was there because they had axles and wheels on them. And I have watched Cloud Nine go from a very well-kept park until Mr. Novosik passed away quite a few years back, and it's run down into a slum. Across from me, there's 3 trailers with broken windows, broken doors, tin going back and forth. They'll come in when the city comes and suggest you do some grass cutting or something, but they won't cut around. If there's a fence around the place, they won't go inside there. There's places with 2 foot of grass, 3 foot tie, as dry as it's been, that are fire hazards. One of them burnt down in, I think it was November or October, and just thank God the wind was right that night and it blew it the other way. Otherwise, they would have lost about 5 homes in there that night. But I know who the person is that they want to send out of there. She's been in there, and she owns her own property, and she obtained this 38-foot travel trailer with extensions on it, and she put it in there. She's got it completely with awnings around the bottom, awnings on the trailer. She keeps her place very neat. She's deep into animal rescue, volunteers a lot of her time to the public, and I think that people like that should be grandfathered. And there's another couple in a private lot they rent that is kept up beautifully, and they have the same type of situation. They've been there for quite a while, and they can't find a place more reasonable. And this lady that they're talking about with the bigger travel trailer, she has a very low income, but she gives a lot of time to people. You know, I was sick this winter. She came over and helped me, stuff like that, because I'm getting more senior every day. But the trailer park is, I called them once about 3 months ago. There's a nice double wide behind. It was a nice double wide, but one of the front windows was broke out. And I called their office, this was 3 months ago or longer, and I said, you got a broken window, could you put some cardboard or some plywood on it? Because if the rain gets in there or anything, we haven't had any rain, but it'll deteriorate the flooring and everything else. Right now, a lot of the siding is ready to fall off that trailer or manufactured home. It's a nice double wide, but it's disintegrating on its spot. They do no maintenance or anything in the park. I don't know why. They're tearing down in the west end. It didn't get it next to the city for some reason. I don't know why. But they're tearing down everything in there and leaving a big mess. They've got a little excavator that it would be fun for me to play with my backyard with. But, and they say, they've told a couple of people I know that live in that area, that they're going to make a trailer park out of it for RVs. Well, there's one main way in there, Rainbow Way. That's if they do get RVs. And people with RVs like to have facilities. There's no facilities there whatsoever. I don't know what's on their mind, but they've been dozing down stuff and with that little excavator and leaving piles of stuff here and there. And the wind's been blowing it around. So I don't know what's going on over there, but I think that these people that are in there now, I don't think we had two couples, grandfather them, and then let new people and stuff. No, it's out, follow the zoning laws. But I am done now. I've said my piece.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening.
Appreciate that. Does anybody want to ask questions or have comments? I don't think so. Okay. We now go to the next individual, Mr. Mike Myers.
I also live in this area, and everything that was just spoken is true. I mean, everything that's going on there. But there are two major culprits that's causing this problem. And the adherence to these zoning and codes that we're having supported right now is something that's going to help us clean this area up. One of the major ones is Moonglow Realty. The other is a culprit that's supporting these dilapidated things that are in there. Now, I don't know whether they have the money or they don't have the money to clean it up, but it's just going on and on and on, and we need the support of the city to make them to adhere to the codes that are in that area. There are some other problems that are going on, but we're working with the Community Development Department to see if we can get this under control. That's all I really have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Bushnell.
How you doing, everybody? My concern is, I have 4 children that I'm raising, still living at home. I have one with special needs that's blind. And not in a million years did I want, to live in an area, to have a daughter that's completely blind, be surrounded by RVs and that type of neighborhood. And my concern is, when I moved my mobile home into the park in '97, I followed code. I did what the city told me to do. I did it right. And, I think changing this would really affect the property value of my home, which I hope to leave to my children. And, for Cloud9, I'm not gonna talk about his business. Yeah, there's things that need to be done, but I own my own property, and I don't want, the decision made on, somebody's property managed skills not being, up to date or whatever. I'm not gonna talk bad about the guy either. And I understand it affects other people, and, my heart really hurts for that. This is a hard thing to say, but I want to say that I don't think it should change. It really impacts the community, which we hope to get better, because like they said, they're cleaning things out. They're trying to develop, and and that hopefully will raise taxes and values and so on and so forth. And it's been ways for so long, but it is encouraging to see things actually starting to move along and things being removed. And and every time they pull a trailer down, it looks better. And when they do that, I really hope that they get a plan together. And it's kind of tough right now with the economy. I imagine it's a real hard time to do stuff like that. I'm just really concerned about how this changes, my children and what's directly around us when, I can't always be there for my daughter. And that would really just cause me to have to sell property and get into a place that's, a little bit safer. I'm not saying I live in the safest neighborhood, but my neighborhood's quiet for the most part, and I'm sorry for the people that it affects, but like I said, it affects my property value. It affects a lot of things for a lot of people that did everything they could to save the little bit that they had to buy what they have to do things right. And I don't think things should change and rewards should happen for doing things, not the way the law said, you know. I love the law. I'm trying to, you know, teach my kids to, you know, do what's right and do what they should be doing. And I don't want them to see that they can be rewarded for not doing things right. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's the last request I have to speak to us on this item. Is there anybody else? I need you to fill out one of these forms by the door and get that to us. You can do that. You can do that after you speak. If you can do it later. If you're Miss Root, I was gonna have you speak first, but that's okay. Please go ahead.
Not sure I can do this with the mask on.
Well, if you're 6 feet away from everybody, you meet the governor's guidance.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Amanda Root. I live at 539 Cloud Ridge in Sierra Vista. I have owned this property for 20 years, and I raised 3 grandkids on it. In 2016, I lived in a double-wide 3-bedroom, 2-bath mobile home. But after I lost my homeowner's insurance, I had a fire that totally destroyed my home. I lost everything, 40 years of precious items, and my kitties. If I had been home, I'm sure I would have been lost in the fire. Without insurance, I was facing homelessness, but a good friend, the then President, Cochise County Humane Society, where I had been on the board for 13 years, offered to let me live in a mobile home in Whetstone for 1 year rent-free. In the following months, the ex-president of the Humane Society stepped up to help me in whatever capacity was needed. We spent day after day, month after month, looking for an acceptable used mobile home. There were none to be found. It was getting close to the end of my rent-free year. I needed some place to live or I would become homeless. I wanted more than anything to be home where my kitties were buried in a place that was so familiar. The ex-president gifted me a beautiful, costly home to put on my property. She also paid $3,000 for the electric pole to be put on my property. Since having my home placed on my property, which is paid for in full, I have worked very hard to beautify my surroundings with fruit trees, flowers, bird, and bees feeders. I have literally built my home up from the ashes. I have a nice privacy fence that not only allows me privacy, but also keeps me from seeing the dilapidated area that surrounds me. City staff has said that they told me I could not put a travel trailer on my property. I do not remember this, or if I did, it didn't register, as there have been a number of travel trailers in the park throughout the 20 years I've been on my property. When I moved here 20 years ago, there was a travel trailer 3 lots east of my place that was there for 4 years. At the time I moved in, mine in 2017, after the fire, there were 3 travel trailers. One had been there for 10 years, one for 6 years, and one for 2 years. The management of Cloud 9 has also from time to time rented out spaces for nightly RVers. Even though so much of Cloud 9 is run down, overgrown with weeds, and abandoned trailers with boarded up windows, the city hasn't tried to make the property owner clean up anything. I'll give you a little show here. I don't know how this works. I'm lost, Jeff.
No, he's working on it.
Okay.
There you go.
This is my place when I moved into it after the fire and after the ashes were taken away. This is a home that's in the trailer park. This is also a home in the trailer park. You'll see a few of these. Can't get all those on there. This is what you see from the road towards my property. Which, if you notice, you can't see a travel trailer. This is what I've built up since I moved back on my property. Not one time in the 20 years have I seen or heard of anyone being harassed or given a 30-day eviction notice to move their travel trailer off the property in Class 9. But it happened to me. In July 2020, I got a letter from the city saying I had to move my home in just 30 days. And if anybody needs a letter, I have a copy. There is nothing wrong with my home. It is safe, and the city has never claimed otherwise. I've been in my home for years with absolutely no problems until now. I will add here that the fight with the city was started by a guy in the park that did not want to pay for his own electrical pole and was mad at the lady who would not let him use her pole. She had a travel trailer on her lot adjacent to her home. This is what caused the city to threaten me with eviction. And even though city staff had said they offered help to me in the beginning, all they did was email me a list of manufactured dealers. Also, I heard through the grapevine that there was a free trailer if I wanted it. It also was dilapidated and too big for my property. I later heard it was an offer from the city. I felt like the city was telling me they didn't care if I could live in it as long as it looked good from the road. I love my home. It is safe, clean, and well cared for. I owe no money on trailer or land, and I'm not hurting anyone. I can't afford to move. The financial burden would basically cause me to be homeless. I love my home, and I want to stay there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I don't have any other items, so I'm gonna close.
I think that
You folks need to turn these in at the beginning of the meeting, so I can call the people properly. If you give your.
I'm sorry.
If you give your sheets to the clerk,
That's not mine.
we'll then have you come up. She can get it to me. Ma'am, what's your name?
My name is Georgia Montgomery, and I
Okay.
reside at 606 Milky Way, Sierra Vista, with my husband, Grandy. And we've lived there for 6 years.
Go ahead, start. Okay, go ahead.
And I really like it there. The area is quiet and it's so convenient because the hospital's like 5 minutes away. I could have my husband at the hospital if I need to, and his doctor, the lab, everything is just so handy. And the grocery store is like 2 minutes away. Gas stations, pharmacies, everything is just very convenient for me. And also living in an RV, it's also very convenient because it's so easy to clean. And you can cook the meals really fast because everything is right there close. You don't have to walk across the room. Just clean up your trailer, make the beds, whatever needs to be done in record time. That way I do have time to take care of myself and my husband. And I think it's very environmentally friendly because it takes so little energy to run. And the rent's very reasonable. Electric bills is cheap and the gas. And I just love it. I like living in an RV and I want to stay there. It's important to me. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Paul Auer. Is that
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Avelar, A-V-E-L-A-R.
E-L-A-R? Okay.
Yes, sir.
A couple of them ran together there, okay?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, thank you so much. My name is Paul Avelar. I am the managing attorney of the Institute for Justice's Arizona office. We have been working with property owners in the Cloud9 area to help protect their homes. You have the packet in front of you. I just want to remind everyone why this has arose and why we're here. In July, the city tried to kick people out of their homes and off their property. People who had been there, as you have heard, for years. When we asked, the city said there was nothing that could be done. The law was the law. There were no variances that could allow them to stay. That was it. They had to comply with the city's order to get out. No hearing, no appeal, no court approval. Just get out. That's what the letter said. There is no public health or safety reason for kicking my clients out of their homes. Neither my clients nor their homes has ever been a threat to public health and safety, and the city has never claimed otherwise. Your packet says that a majority of property owners in Cloud9 object. That really is just one entity. It's Moonglow, who you've heard about already, which by itself owns almost all of Cloud9. Note that Moonglow's properties are the ones that tend to be run down, overgrown, with abandoned trailers that are boarded up windows. And yet the city has not gone after these real threats to Cloud9. Just the people in trailers the city calls RVs, who actually take care of their homes and their properties and their neighbors. It is not illegal to live in RVs in Sierra Vista. You've heard that already. And it's not even illegal to live in RVs in Cloud9. Your law just says my clients live in the wrong part of Cloud9. If they live just to the west in the larger area, that's one lot owned by Moonglow, it's perfectly legal to live in an RV there. But it's not legal to live on their own property, not 200 feet away. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. That the property owner, by the way, that's Moonglow's, yet more Moonglow property. So they can rent space from Moonglow to live in their homes, but they can't rent from someone else or own their own property. That's the upshot. There wasn't a need for any of this, as you've heard. This came out of a neighbor's fight that had nothing to do with my clients. But the city did pick this fight by telling my clients they had just 30 days to pick up and get out in the middle of a pandemic. At the request of members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, we submitted proposed language to amend the law to fix this problem. It would have treated manufactured home residential subdivisions the same as manufactured home residential parks. City staff opposed. At the request of the Planning and Zoning Commission, we submitted different proposed language to amend the law and allow some kinds of trailers, not all kinds of RVs, as a conditional use in manufactured home residential subdivisions. City staff again opposed. During the Planning and Zoning Commission's November 17 meeting, Mr. McLaughlin testified that the city would restart enforcement efforts against our clients. would again attempt to evict them if the city council did not amend the code to allow them to continue living in their homes where they are today. Given this threat, if the city council does not amend the code to allow my clients to stay in their homes, we are planning to file a lawsuit because it appears to be the only way to protect their rights in court. Their rights don't depend on whether they live in a castle or an RV. They are protected by the Constitution, as you heard in today's invocation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about our multiple proposals or alternative ideas, but I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. We next go to Donna. And say again?
Graybill?
Graybill.
Hi, I'm Donna Graybill. I've lived in Sierra Vista since 1976, on and off, so I have followed a lot of what's going on. I was a real estate broker in this area for a long time. I was also the director of Castle and Cook's Pueblo del Sol RV Park when it was here. I'm a certified RV park manager-operator. I've RV'd for 40-some years. What I see the city doing here and having this, I think is a wonderful idea to change the code and get Cloud9 into today's realm where this has been, I mean, I've been 10,000 miles a year I put on the RV as we traveled. And this is such a good thing because it happens in every other area I've ever been in. Mobile home parks go with RVing, and most of the places we've always stayed in, yes, you have your RV resorts, you have your RV parks, and you have your manufactured homes with RV parking in them. So many people have a misconception of what RVs bring to a area and what RVers are. And to see that this would be a wonderful solution to get Cloud9 back, to bringing it back into a really nice park. And in today's society where we have people that can only live in RVs for, as she mentioned, it is a wonderful thing for handicapped people. There's walk-in showers, it's easily obtainable to space-wise, they can get around easier. Those that maybe have to help out a family member or something, it's just, I've done this over the years where I've stood in front of audiences and tried to get that stigma of what an RVer is. And so many people think, oh, you live in an RV. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. It's preferably, I'd rather live in an RV than in a house and have that thing. Then you have RVs that can cost $5,000 and you can have $1 million RV. So it spans the whole area. But I really think, and I've known the people that live in Cloud9, like I said, I've followed it over the years that I've been in this community and the things I've done. And I just think by making that zoning change, it would be a really beneficial thing for everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, now,
What was her name?
Graybill, Mrs. Graybill. Donna Graybill.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so I'll close the meeting to the public. At this time, Mr. McLaughlin, would you come back up to the dais? Any comments, questions, or from Mr. McLaughlin? Yes, sir.
Hey, Mr. McLaughlin, thank you so far. What would tiny homes be classified as?
What would what?
Tiny homes. The new trend of tiny homes.
Oh,
on
the
trailer
middle of the home?
Yeah.
Well, there are tiny homes on wheels, and then there are site-built tiny homes.
Okay.
Generally, they're probably 400 square feet or less.
Roger. Well, are they classified as trailers
Under the
or are
code.
they classified
Under
as
the code.
RVs? What would the code classify them as?
It depends on the type of construction.
Okay.
So if it's site-built under a
Right.
building permit, it would be a permanent structure.
Okay.
Before you go any further in the back in the control room, can we get the map that's on exhibit to the right way? I guess it's a, yeah, I guess it's a thing with me. I want to make sure it's properly displayed. Okay, we're good. That was you, I guess, man, huh?
Is there a way to zoom out?
Okay. Any other comments or questions from Mr. McLaughlin on his report?
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. There was something that was brought up about a 2-year time, like that you first contacted 2 years prior. You were saying that you, Ms. Root said she was given 30 days notice in July, and now, I don't know, there was somewhere in her packet that there was a 2-year timeline. Can you refresh my memory there?
Okay, I don't know the 2-year time frame, but there was a notice of violation sent, which is a precursor to formal code enforcement action that stated the nature of the violation and gave a time frame to correct that violation and encouragement to contact us. And generally, when there's communication between code enforcement and the property owner, we can work out a reasonable plan of action. Absent, compliance, then the city affords the property owner due process through the abatement petition process, which is a hearing before the local magistrate where both sides present their case and a decision is rendered, and a timeline given for compliance if the violation is upheld. Basically, what the property owner received last summer was a notice of violation to inform her of the zoning violation.
If I can just share thoughts, based on a lot of the public comments received in our packet, the discussion held on Tuesday, and what we see before, I think the troublesome thing is that what we are not discussing is a mobile home park. This is not a mobile home park. This is a subdivision of homes. And so a code change applies to all 3 home subdivisions that you see on this map. So it doesn't just apply to this one neighborhood. It would apply to several different areas of the city that are also zoned with the same the same change. So that's something that I think the people in this room need to understand. It doesn't just apply to one neighborhood, and it's not a mobile home park owned by one owner. It is a subdivision that is zoned a certain way. And so I think that that's an important distinction, and it forevermore that anywhere in those 3 areas of the city, people could live in RVs on any of those areas of the city, and any type of RVs, right? Whether it's a travel trailer or whatever, and that's troublesome to me. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be holding feet to the fire on dilapidated, other trailers and other homes that are in disrepair and other properties that are in disrepair. We should be. Those points that were brought up are absolutely valid. So, but I think that's a discussion for a different day. That's not relevant to this discussion.
I would agree with that last comment, and I would also say that had this happened 10 years ago or 15 years ago, there probably wouldn't be just 3 neighborhoods that need to be addressed. There would have been several more, because we have slowly cleaned up, and as we clean up, we try to take into consideration the individuals and the impact on their lives. And that's why it seems to take longer than it probably should.
When we're taking CDBG funding and trying to invest in these areas, right, by putting in new streets and new lighting and new this and that, which we did in Sugar, we put in new plumbing and new this and that.
The whole sewer problem.
The whole sewer line,
yeah.
Which was put in with the thought that there would not be RVs, because we put in a sewer line, and that was a significant investment, but we sought that grant funding for that. that kind of investment, you know, that the city's trying to clean up these neighborhoods. And I still think that, you know, a code change would be a step backwards. I do.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Just one more quick question. I should have asked it Tuesday, madam. I apologize. How long has it been zoned residential or manufactured home residence district?
Since the property was annexed, I believe in 1986.
Okay.
Anything else?
No questions, just comments, but all the
Okay,
other people.
then if we're done with questions for Matt, you know, you'll stand by, I know, in case there's something that comes up. Any additional comments? And whoever wants to go first, go first. Yes, sir.
I think it's a tough spot we're in, but it's not. One, your house is, your neighborhood's beautiful, what you did to it. Problem we have is whether you're low, mid, or high level home buyer, it's still the American dream to buy a home. What I don't want when I purchase my property or my home, no matter what division I'm in or what fracture of life, I'm spending my hard-earned money. And I don't want something to move in next door or something down the street that's gonna lower or diminish the value I put into my home. And that's why we have zoning laws, and that's why we have certain criteria of homes that what you can and can't do in that neighborhood. It's not to select who and who can't live there, it's to maintain a certain value that I invested in when I purchased my house there. And then the problem comes in, if we've been zoned this way since 1986, it's hard to say, let's grandfather somebody in, because they're not there then. They knew what the regulations were, they knew what the codes were when they purchased their home. So it's a tough situation. And I agree with Sarah. I think we need to clean up the neighborhood more than we need to do other stuff, but I had to vote my conscience tonight, which is upholding zones and regulations, which is, we have them for a reason. And I just wish there's more we could do, but that's all, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing no other further discussion, I'll call for the question. All those in favor?
Oh, for what?
All those in favor of
The
the amendment to change the code,
Oh, yes.
right? That's what we're voting on? Okay.
Okay.
All in favor?
No.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. I will just want to add a comment on the end of this. We have decided administratively to suspend any eviction notice until such time as the governor does lift his COVID orders, his emergency orders dealing with COVID. So that should give additional time. I'm saying this specifically so the attorney knows that information in public. So again, we hope that we're still open for resolution, and I want to thank the homeowner in particular for being here tonight. We're closed to the public, ma'am. And I think you did a brave thing trying to come in and change the code yourself and working with staff to do that. And quite frankly, I admire you for that, because that's a tough thing to do. So we'll now move on to item number 5. Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that ordinance 2021-002, amendments to chapters 130 and 151 of the City Code of Ordinances, amending sections 151.02.004 definitions, 151.06.005 medical marijuana dispensary, and 151.22.006 matrix of use permissions by zoning districts, and adding section 130.05 marijuana prohibited on public property be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Pregler, may we have the staff report, please?
Yes, you can. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. As stated in the ordinance reading, this is a request for proposed text amendments relating to recreational marijuana standards. And I think before I talk about the specific amendments, I want to kind of talk a little bit about the history briefly about Prop 207 to put it in context in terms of the code amendments themselves. So again, Prop 207 was approved by the voters on November 3rd, 2020. Of course, it legalized marijuana and allowed individuals 21 years of age or older to possess, purchase, consume, process, manufacture, and/or transport 1 ounce or less of marijuana. It also allowed individuals in their homes to harvest up to 6 plants or up to 12 plants if there are 2 adults meaning over 21 years of age, provided that the plants are located in an enclosed building under lock and key. Now, the state legislation also allowed for marijuana establishments, which would be the commercial component of the legislation. And what marijuana establishments are defined as, according to the state legislation, is that it's a retail location where marijuana can be sold, cultivated, and manufactured. It is an off-site cultivation location where marijuana is processed and manufactured, or it is an off-site storage location where marijuana is manufactured, packaged, and stored. More likely than not, Mr. Mayor and Council, that it'll probably be number 1 is is the type of establishment that we will receive in this community, where it'll be all-in-one type of business, where it'll be the selling, a retail location, as well as the cultivation and manufacturing establishment. Now, ADHS, Arizona Department of Health Services, will start accepting early applications between January 19th, 2021 to March 9th. Now, for counties that have less than 2, and this is in state law, for counties that have less than 2 medical marijuana dispensaries, a total of 2 adult use marijuana establishments will be allowed. Now, if there's already an existing medical marijuana establishment, then 1 additional standalone recreational facility will be allowed within the county. Now, there's currently 1 medical marijuana dispensary in the county, which is located in Bisbee. Therefore, there is 1 additional, again, standalone adult use marijuana establishment that will be allowed within this county under this early application process. Now, as was mentioned previously, ADHS will be issuing 26 additional licenses sometime down the road, but at this point, we're looking at only 1 additional within the county. So the legislation allows local jurisdictions to have limited discretion on regulating these marijuana establishments. The caveat being, though, that the local standards cannot be more restrictive than the medical marijuana dispensary standards, and we'll talk a little bit more about those as we go through this presentation. State law allows local jurisdictions for 3 regulatory approaches to these medical marijuana establishments, or these recreational marijuana establishments. Number 1, cities can prohibit medical marijuana establishments outright within the community. They can allow with a dual license with medical marijuana licenses. I apologize. Number 1 should say prohibit the recreational marijuana establishments. We can allow these recreational establishments through a dual medical marijuana license, or we can allow these establishments as standalone businesses. So Council held a work session on January 12th. The consensus from that work session was as follows. The consensus was that they would like to see establishments both as dual licenses and standalone establishments. The consensus also was that they would like to keep the existing operational and development standards for medical marijuana in place and apply them to the recreational marijuana establishments as well. And they also wanted to prohibit the use of marijuana on city-owned properties. So with that direction in mind, staff did create some text amendments and are presented to you tonight. The first section I want to talk about, the text amendments would be section 151.02.004, definitions. A number of definitions were added to the development code. These definitions were added directly and were copied from the legislation, so therefore they are consistent with state law. There was a question about the public community center definition. As was stated earlier, there is currently a minimum distance requirement between medical marijuana establishments and certain uses. A public community center is one of those such uses. However, there was no definition at the time for public community centers. So for clarity purposes, staff has provided a definition for this term. and it shall read that a building owned by the city that is open to the public and is used for meetings, recreation, or social activities, and may have outdoor recreational facilities, shall be defined as a public community center. Now, the next section I want to refer to is section 151.06.005, marijuana facilities. Now, this particular definition of marijuana facilities will include 4 different types of facilities. We'll be talking about medical marijuana dispensaries, medical marijuana cultivation and infusion facilities. Again, these 2 are already currently in the development code, and there's already standards in place for these. Marijuana establishments, and marijuana testing facilities. And again, just to refresh the memory, testing facilities are operated by the Arizona Department of Health Services or licensed entity that analyze the potency of marijuana, and these are not open to the public. So again, these are the additional 2 facilities that we will be adding to this section. So first, I'll talk a little bit about the submittal requirements that will be required for anybody that wants to open up one of these establishments or facilities in the city. We're first going to require a pre-submittal meeting or pre-submittal requirement. And the reason for this is because there are specific fire code and building code standards which address marijuana facilities. And so before they spend a lot of money and invest a lot of interest in a particular property, we want to let them know up front what some of those concerns are, some of the code requirements they'll have to meet. And of course, the other change in this section is that we consolidated the existing submittal requirements. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the development and locational standards. Again, this will apply to all the facilities. What staff did is we clarified the minimum distance standards. Now, the existing language for medical marijuana facilities states that these facilities shall not be located within 500 feet of a residentially zoned property. It also says preschools, it says kindergartens, it says secondary schools, high schools, and so forth. Staff already had, the development code already had a definition for schools, already had a definition for private schools. And so with that, to clarify purposes, to clarify things, what we did is we included those definitions into this section. So school, when we say a school, it refers to any public school or any charter school, K through 12. The School of General Education refers to any private school that, again, teaches the standard K through 12 curriculum. A child care center licensed by the Arizona Department of Health Services would cover both child care and preschools that are licensed with the state of Arizona. So both of those entities will be covered under that particular definition. In addition to which, place of worship, public park, or public community center. Again, and the other change in this section is that we consolidated the existing development and locational standards. I'll be talking more about the minimum distance standards as we move on to this presentation. Operational requirements, marijuana establishments and medical marijuana dispensaries. We basically, the text amendments combined existing medical marijuana dispensary operational requirements with the requirements in the model ordinance by the League of Arizona Cities. Operational requirements were also added for both marijuana testing facilities and medical marijuana infusion or cultivation facilities remained the same. And in the last section that text amendments will be included in will be section 151.22.006, matrix of use permissions. And the change here is that the marijuana establishments and the marijuana testing facilities have been included as permitted uses in the general commercial zoning district. So they're limited to only the general commercial zoning districts. Medical marijuana dispensaries will continue to be allowed in the general commercial, and medical marijuana cultivation and infusion facilities will continue to be allowed in the industrial zoning districts. And then the code amendments related to the city code would be chapter 130.05 general offenses. And in this section here, we added definitions that are directly copied from the legislation, which again is consistent with state law. The state law currently prohibits marijuana smoking in open spaces and public places. And again, open spaces, according to the Arizona Revised Statutes, is sidewalks, multi-use paths, parks. That is defined by ARS as open spaces. Public places would be any facility in which the public is invited. So it would be a restaurant, it would be an office building, it would be a store. Anything of that sort would be considered a public place. So the state law then currently prohibits people from smoking marijuana in these locations. However, the legislation also allows local jurisdictions to have prohibitions on the smoking on city-owned properties as well. So again, from the direction from City Council, the provision has been added that states that marijuana is prohibits the smoking of marijuana and displaying, consuming, selling, distributing, storing, cultivating, manufacturing, or producing of marijuana on city-owned properties. We had our discussion at the work session Tuesday about the term displaying, and this was something that the police department had wanted us to include in this definition, so it is here before you today. All right, so the Planning and Zoning Commission heard the proposed text amendments on January 25th, and they recommended a couple of revisions to the proposed amendments that were before them that evening. The first amendment was that the minimum distance requirements between establishments or between dispensaries would be reduced from the 500 feet, which is currently required for medical marijuana establishments, to 300 feet. Now, this 300 feet would be applicable to both these medical marijuana dispensaries and the recreational establishments. The other amendment that they recommended was that the minimum distance requirements to a school of general education, a child care center licensed by ADHS, a place of worship outside of the general commercial zoning districts, a public park or a public community center be reduced from the current 500-foot requirement for medical marijuana establishments to 300 feet. And again, this will be applicable to medical marijuana establishments and to the recreational marijuana establishments. The reason why they made this change, it would be number one, is that it would provide additional locations to locate these establishments. And secondly, it would be consistent with the liquor license distance requirements, which also requires a 300-foot separation between liquor license establishments like bars, for example, to residential districts, to churches, and so forth. So based on the work session on Tuesday, staff was given direction, I believe by consensus from council, to accept the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendations. So as a result of that, Exhibit A was modified and was sent to the council for their review. And so what you'll be voting on tonight would be that revised Exhibit A, which has the P&Z's recommendations on it. Again, it'll have the 300-foot separation between dispensaries, establishments. It'll maintain, I should have mentioned this earlier, it'll maintain a 500-foot minimum distance separation between the dispensaries, establishments, and residential zoning districts. And it'll reduce the minimum distance separation, again, between schools of general education, child care facilities, places of worship outside of general commercial zoning districts, public parks or public community centers to 300 feet from the current 500 feet. And I would like to show you a map now. This is again as recommended at the work session on Tuesday. This is the buffer map of what it'll look like. What this indicates here is a 500-foot buffer from the establishments to residential. It includes a 300-foot buffer from, again, the churches outside of GC, the schools and the parks, to the dispensaries and establishments. And you can see the current 500-foot requirement looks like this. And then the recommended 500-foot and 300-foot buffer looks like this. So you do have additional locations as a result of reducing this to 300 feet and keeping the 500-foot residential buffer.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Sure, please.
Yes, please.
Jeff, does this include the community centers as they're defined now that they have it? Does that map reflect
Yes,
community centers?
it reflects all of those uses that were listed on that minimum distance requirement, correct. And then last slide, we did receive a number of public comments. Many of the public comments discussed specifically the legalization and the allowance of these dispensaries and establishments. They didn't necessarily talk specifically about the language. We also did receive some comments from the commercial real estate community, indicating that the 2,000 square foot building maximum limits investment opportunities. They also indicated that they may potentially wanted to see these establishments be located in industrial zoning districts as well. So that does conclude staff support, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions for Mr. Pregler?
Just a real quick one, Mr. Mayor. If we do want to allow them in industrial zoning, then that would be later. We wouldn't do an amendment, we wouldn't try to do it now. That is something to consider later on.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Comments from the council?
We don't have industrial zoning, right?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, we do. Okay.
Ma'am.
I do. The Herald Review released an article today that helped with some of the concern I had on Tuesday about how they would be choosing among the applications, because they're going to get a ton, right? And so basically it's going to be Hunger Games style lottery. Now it's on my hands.
At least for the first one.
I like how you used
now
hunger
I feel
too.
like, we're doing as much as we can now. I don't feel like, we're just delaying the inevitable anymore.
That's on the state.
So,
That's
yeah.
on the state.
And I do appreciate the research Greg shared with us, because I hadn't seen that, and it's something, I think it might be helpful information for us down the road. It could come in handy, because there will be or may not be related activity once we have an establishment here, and I just don't want us to, because we're going to have to deal with that type of activity, whether or not they're established in Sierra Vista, and I would rather us have that potential revenue, and based off the methodology that they use at the state level for Sierra Vista, outside the smart and safe, was it safe and smart? Safe and smart?
Some
Okay.
people will say neither, but that's okay.
Okay, yeah, that fund from the state. We're looking at, just from our sales tax, our 1.95, over 100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Based off that. So that would be handy if that was a concern, and it is a concern. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes, I'd like to read a statement I prepared in advance for this hearing. The issue before the council this evening is whether to permit a recreational marijuana dispensary within the city limits. I've spent a great deal of time researching, reading, and studying the literature regarding the experiences of cities, both in California and Colorado, who open recreational marijuana dispensaries where states have legislated recreational marijuana to be legal. I wanted to make a decision based on facts and would be of benefit to the city. Pro-marijuana sites play down the criminal, societal, and physical consequences caused by the distribution of the product. But I reviewed many sources to balance out my research. Cannabis.net, SweetStoneCandy.com, InhaleMD.com, 420.net. What I really found were numerous studies which were concerning a rise in property crime rates within the proximity of a recreational dispensary. A study by researchers at the University of Colorado and The Ohio State University, appearing in Justice Quarterly, found that neighborhoods with one or more medical or recreational dispensaries saw an increase in crime rates that were between 26 and 1,452% higher than in neighborhoods without such commercial activity. And I mentioned in our work session the most recent academic study that was done by the John Jay School of Law in New York City. The study analyzed the criminal effect of legalizing recreational marijuana dispensaries in Denver. It was discovered that street segments or blocks with recreational marijuana dispensaries experienced an 18% increase in property crime, and there were some notable drug and disorder crime increases. A cost-benefit analysis with the associated crime costs were largely offset by sales revenue, but barely cost-effective based only on tax revenue, as Ms. Humphrey just mentioned. Based on my research and face-to-face contacts with the many people that I come in contact with, I have no other choice than to vote no on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Rachel?
Miss Gregg.
I can go last. You want to
Well, you're gonna go last.
You want to go last?
You're gonna go last. He doesn't have anything else to add.
No, I do.
Oh, you don't? Go ahead.
First, I'd like to say thank you for, and thank you for council for the consensus of changing to 500, 300, 300. I was doing some reading last night as Mr. Johnson brought out some good points on Tuesday. And like Mr. Johnson, I voted no on Prop 207. I think we open ourselves up to a lot more issues when we start doing things like this, but the people spoke, and that's the problem I have now is I represent the people, and I want to make sure we do it the right way, the accurate way, and the best way for Sierra Vista and surrounding areas. And then it goes back to what Ms. Humphrey said, excuse me. It's going to happen no matter what we do as a body. So I want to make sure we do it the right way and the fair way. Crime's going to go up no matter what, because now you have somebody growing 3 plants in their basement. They're going to give it away and sell it. They're going to give buds away. How we monitor this stuff is, I think, still in question. We have harsh regulations for alcohol. We have harsh regulations for cigarettes. And I think we're going to have harsh regulations for marijuana. But by opening it up and allowing a revenue stream in from something that's going to happen anyway, and selecting where in our city it can and can't go, I think is a huge thing to do to set that standard. So unlike voting for 207, I'm voting yes for this. And I want to give the free market and enterprise a chance. Let's do it the right way. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that change, and I'll let Ms. Gray.
Well, we're gonna let.
Oh, I didn't know if
Sarah
someone
speak.
else had something. I'm sorry, Sarah.
Okay, no, that's okay. I just.
The mayor pro tem wants to be next to last. Next to last.
Next to last. We know who's last.
Okay, I just wanted to add, I don't think we're done here. Like, this is, I don't think we're even close. I don't think the state's done. I don't think this nation's done. This is the start of a road that's gonna be long. So we're like setting a place like of where we're gonna be, and then at some point there will be a federal action, I'm sure. At some point there will be more state action, I'm sure. And then we'll have to react to that, and then we'll have to react to that. So I don't think that things are, I mean, so we're reacting to things that are as they are right now, which is where the voters left them by voting yes on Prop 207. And they may change in the not very distant future. So, like, honestly, so that's how I feel. I think that this is gonna change probably pretty soon. And we'll have to adapt with it. I think there's gonna be lots of enforcement hurdles. I appreciate candid conversation with Chief Thacher on his concerns, and me being able to share my concerns with him, and like I've always been able to be very open about things with him, and then likewise, and you just say this is where we're coming from, and so I appreciate his insight there. So yeah, so that's. But I don't think we're done. I think that they'll also bring stuff that if the police department is finding enforcement things, that they say they can bring that to us and say, hey, like, we need to change this. They could do that. They could bring that to the city and say, hey, this is not working, right? Like, they could do that, and within state law, of course, you know, or it could be brought at the state level where law enforcement agencies statewide could bring something, you know, up the state level and say, hey, this isn't working, that something needs to, like, that is how this stuff happens, is we change it bit by bit. We find out what works and what doesn't, so. This is a starting point. We'll see where it goes from here.
Thank you. Anybody? Yes, ma'am. Dr.
I
Landon.
have a comment. I think 5 years ago, I probably would have been like, just say no. But, the people, it did pass, and that's what the people want to do. And I think that everybody's made a lot of really great comments. And I really appreciate all of the research that's went into all of this, being presented with the research, other council members doing research, a lot of discussion amongst council members and then just ourselves as well. And I mean, the good thing is that we're not going to, the first area that's doing this. So, I mean, there's a lot to learn from other areas that have done this before, and it's going to definitely be a process. It's going to be a difficult process, and, there'll be a lot of different enforcement issues and everything like that. But, the good thing is that we're together as a city, and we have, the help of each other, the communication, collaboration, to make this process go as well as it can, and then hopefully see some positive results. Being able, I also feel like you shouldn't be restricting people in as much. So I do appreciate being able to lessen the area as well.
Okay. Anybody else? Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
One alibi first, Mr. Mayor. Real quick, I'm sorry. I forgot. I asked the question and I forgot to bring it up. I would like to have a
You get one shot.
One. It's a good one.
You're taking my time up.
No, Mr. Mayor, I'm
Get
gonna
on
be
it.
quick. I would like to have a work session or a discussion and see pros and cons of opening it up to the industrial zone going forward.
Okay, we can certainly do that. Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
So I have nothing profane and awesome to say. I just wanted to first and foremost say thank you to Matt and Jeff for your work on this. Looking at codes, doing all the research, and writing it in a way that's beneficial to our city and captures the consensus of council is not easy in the short period of time that you did it in. So thank you for that. And I would just like to say that my vote on this, which will be in favor, is not an approval of marijuana. That's what, none of this has nothing to do with any of this. It certainly more has to do with the long-term planning, the long-range planning of the city. And I appreciate that it looks like we've agreed to, if the vote goes through, to disperse the facilities out so that we don't wind up long-term in the future having a small group of a district, for lack of a better word. So I appreciate that that's being considered. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. And I'm gonna borrow the metaphor that was used just a minute ago about roads. When the folks voted on this for approval for us for the state, we did in fact enter on a long journey on a road. And part of our job is to make sure it's as least hazardous as we can make it within the bounds of the law. And that's going to continue to be a challenge, where I agree with you too, Sarah. And I know the chief knows it's going to be a continued challenge to be able to still protect and serve our folks and make sure that we don't do anything that's going to harm our community, which is one of our goals. So, is there any further discussion?
This isn't the emergency one though, right? This is just
There's no emergency clause
Okay.
on this. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, like sign? It passes 5-2. We now move on to, where are we at here? Under new business, Mrs. Humphrey.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2021-011, Intergovernmental Agreement between the City of Sierra Vista and the Arizona Department of Transportation to continue to electronically provide and access traffic crash data for inclusion in the statistical analysis and publication be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll now have Chief Thrasher give his staff report, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Before you today is an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Sierra Vista and the Arizona Department of Transportation. Law enforcement agencies throughout the state provide the Arizona Department of Transportation with traffic crash data from each of their respective jurisdictions. ADOT uses the data to publish a statewide publication with statistical analysis of traffic crashes. The Service Police Department has provided this data to ADOT for several years. The intergovernmental agreement is a renewal of the agreement that we have previously had to provide electronically the traffic crash data for inclusion in the analysis, and also so that we can now access that data as well online. This is also the first step to implementation of electronic crash forms and traffic citations that would go directly from the patrol vehicles directly into the ADOT system. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Chief Thrasher? Seeing none, I'll just say that this is an agreement that we have been in before, and it's a routine item. So I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, Chief. We now go on to item number 7. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2021-012, Arizona Department of Homeland Security Operation Stone Garden Grant, be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Chief Thrasher, may we have your staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Before you is the acceptance of a Homeland Security grant with the Arizona Department of Homeland Security for Operation Stone Garden. Operation Stone Garden program supports enhanced cooperation and coordination among Customs and Border Protection, the United States Border Patrol, and federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial law enforcement agencies. The program provides funding to support joint efforts to secure the United States borders along routes of ingress from international borders, to include travel corridors in states bordering Mexico and Canada, as well as states and territories with international water borders. Stone Garden remains focused and committed to supporting state, local, and tribal law enforcement agencies in their goals to build capability to prevent, protect against, and respond to all threats dealing with border security issues by encouraging local operational objectives which serve as force multipliers to enhance national and state border security strategies. State and local agencies that participate in the program enforce state law and coordinate enforcement efforts with federal partners to provide overlapping layers of security in these communities. The deployments enhance Sierra Vista PD's proactive enforcement of state drug trafficking and traffic statutes in Sierra Vista and the immediate surrounding areas. The attached award notification will authorize us to receive the grant in the amount of $81,059 for overtime and employee-related expenses, and $12,061 for mileage from the Arizona Department of Homeland Security. Should be noted that the employee-related expenses do include all PSPRS liability, as well as all the entire employee-related expenses that the city has regarding each person working overtime. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief Thrasher on this item? Thank you for your report, Chief. I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now finally, for you last two guys, we're going to call the public. I apologize for us taking so long. And it looks like the first is, I want to say Lawrence Aru. If you come up, sir, you've got 5 minutes. You were here when we gave the explanation about the lights, so I appreciate it.
I was over at the co-op, and I wanted to bring a vehicle in there and a booth. And I told them that I was a nonprofit.
Sir, would you move the mic a little closer? There we go.
I was at the co-op today, and I told them I wanted to bring a vehicle and set up a booth for my nonprofit. And I got an interesting response that said, no, that's all restricted. No nonprofits, no churches. And I just did a kind of a double take, like,
Sir, can I ask you a question to clarify? When you say the co-op, are you talking about the grocery store that's a co-op on the west side, or are you talking about the folks that run
the park?
At the park, okay, got you.
Farmers market.
Farmers market. We call that the farmers market, so we're on the same page.
Yeah. Anyhow, I knew she didn't have all the responsibility, and so she said, well, you need to come over and see somebody over here. And, of course, everybody's locked up here, and it was fortuitous that you folks have got this meeting going on. So, well, anyhow, I got my nonprofit because I got messed up, so I've been put out to pasture, so I needed to find something to do. So I am now working directly with this fella in Uganda. And he has a church in Kampala that's got it's in excess of 2,000 members. And he runs the jungle with doing waterworks, putting in wells. They currently have over 100 villages that are in backlog to get put wells in. Now, I started a nonprofit, Pastor On over here, and I just got $30,000 from the church to support this. We're in the middle of phase 1, which is to support replacing these commercial vehicles. So I've got the first vehicle, and I personally have over $22,000 in that vehicle right now, and it's sitting on my lot. So it will come in and it will replace this guy right here, because the well, or the drill head, that machine there, weighs 28,000 pounds. Now, what I'm doing is, I got a few years in the military and a couple assignments as motor officers. Anyhow, I'm linking up, finding reproposing or getting these guys rebuilt. They're not really built. The one I have right now is this big boy right here. It was completely rebuilt in 2011 and only has 1,200 miles on it. These guys were all rebuilt at one time, ready to go back to Iraq or somewhere, and they never really did. So they sat in the National Guard long enough until the next models came out, and now they're, selling them out. So these guys, so the first phase of this operation is probably going to run around $150,000. There are several phases to this that will include expanding Christianity and the gospel throughout the country of Uganda, and we're ready to push out into Kenya and Nigeria. The dream, if you will. This is, I call him William because I can't pronounce his last name. He almost died when he was 12 because of water. And so he has a direct thing about, getting wells put in. And when he came over and gave a presentation to the church here, you just had to sign up. So this is one of his crusades in Kampala. As you can see, there's a few folks. And then when he does go out to the field, and he does that quite regularly, you have this. And where he started from was in the dirty water, and you've seen all the pictures where people are carrying buckets and, getting water out of streams and good stuff. So anyhow, this is a result, one of the wells that came in. And so right now we're not putting any money actually into the well itself. We're just working on the trucks.
Sir, I hate to do this because your time has expired and you've been so patient, but I want to go back to your first part of your presentation. This is all great stuff and things we need to do, and I've been a motor officer too, so I understand what you're trying to do. But if the issue is getting you to the park, right?
Yes, and
Okay,
and be able.
so-
I need to go to churches, and do presentations.
Where we can help you is we allow the folks to operate in the park.
Right.
And we do that currently under the governor's orders of COVID. And we make special allocations. The person for you to see is our Director of Leisure and Library Services, Laura Wilson, and Mr. Patuchik can give you her contact information. And we can see how we can work out getting nonprofits a space and do it under COVID rules. And that's where our challenge really is from the city's perspective.
Okay.
Now, hopefully, and I think they've done this in the past, the folks that run the event in the park have allowed nonprofits to be set up in the past, but we've kind of limited it to actually foodstuffs and that kind of stuff during COVID. We have additional separations and all those other rules, which I'm sure you can comply with.
Big part.
But again, I think the key thing for you is to get with Miss Wilson and talk to her, explain to her what you're doing, and we'll get you the contact information. And if you don't have satisfaction, come back and give me a call or send me an email, and we'll go talk to somebody.
Thank you.
Okay?
Oh, by the way, could the city come up with a $10,000 donation?
You and I can talk about that, because that's about a 20-minute discussion on the history of why we don't do that. So
I do have one other thing
okay,
that
quickly, sir, you have one other person that needs to address this tonight.
Yeah, I understand. I was at Lawley's, and I went to the cashier to check out. A 17-year-old girl, she almost broke down crying about the condition, what she has for what she thinks her future is. She's worried about defunding the cops. She's worried about the open border. She's worried about everything around here. She doesn't think she'll even want to have any kids. So my nonprofit has a fairly large, broad area. So one of the things I was going to start to do is pizza parties and maybe, go to a movie. But I think there needs to be something to get with the teens. And I mean, really get with them.
Yeah.
Because they are super freaking worried.
Yep. And they're good. Yeah, most of them are good kids too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And she is she's a model. You can imagine, okay, open borders. Here's the cartel. Somebody throws a sack over her head and she's in Mexico.
Itself is an issue. So we need to continue to work with our youth. I appreciate you coming tonight and sharing this with us. And I'll commit to working with you as much as we can. Okay?
Well, thank you very much, and it's been enlightening to be here. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Last person to address us tonight is Todd. You want me to hold the camera for you?
I was going to offer the same thing.
I am fine indeed.
Thank you, Pastor.
This does work after all, okay. I still say this could be a little louder, though. All right. I just wanted to, I know the city is looking for suggestions and advice of what to add to proposed additions to Veterans Park and the West End. Well, my suggestion is think big. I mean, really big in this case. How about seize on our hummingbird capital of the world status by pursuing state recognition of such, for starters, and then authorize funding for the world's largest hummingbird statue of some sort to be built and then marketed accordingly. Maybe you could build it on, on the Veterans Park area or on the West End area where you're looking to make some improvements there. And then you could figure out what you could put around this world's largest hummingbird, whether it's maybe some of the local museums that could be congregated in that area, or you make an appropriate playground area or whatever you think. And maybe put together some sort of advisory council together for something like that as well. And maybe involve the local hummingbird organization, or maybe have a contest for local artists to maybe propose their idea of what the world's largest hummingbird would look like. But I think that could be a big draw. And instead of folks going to Tombstone and Bisbee all the time, let's make something to have people come to Sierra Vista for a change. So I think this could be a way to do that. Another thing, Christmas was great this year at Veterans Park, probably the best ever I've seen as far as decoration-wise goes. And I want to really encourage the city to seize that and build on that and become the Christmas city of the South. And just turn Veterans Park into nothing but Christmas. And if you're looking for funding, go to appeal to local businesses. First of all, the electric company, I'm sure, would give a huge donation, and they could sponsor a part of the park. Other businesses like Lolly or whatever, coolfmonline.com will sponsor a part of the park, and maybe you could come up with categories for that and what that would cost each section of the park for businesses to sponsor if you're looking for funding. And then the city could, of course, put dollars, but come up with a game plan. And I think that would be a huge draw to make Veterans Park a true Christmas, Sierra Vista, a true Christmas city destination as well, drawing people to Veterans Park. And maybe it will also inspire other businesses along Fry Boulevard to actually decorate as well, too. So I just wanted to pass this along, just a couple of suggestions that I really hope you consider and follow up on and follow through on, because I think it could be a big positive for Sierra Vista. Mr. Mayor and the council, thank you again, and that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. And since you mentioned it, we still have an ongoing comment period open for what's going on, what is potentially going to go on in Veterans Park. So please go to the city website, and you'll see a picture of a young lady looking at a clipboard, and you can click on that, and it takes you right to what's going on with the three options and how you can comment and provide input for that. So thanks for reminding me of that. Now we'll close the meeting to the public, and we'll go to comments and requests for council. Tonight we start with Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some rather sad news that has not been really made public. Mitzi Kerms passed away on Sunday, and she was very instrumental in supporting the Forgash House for 24 years, putting on wonderful variety shows at the high school auditorium. She did that for more than 2 decades, gathering talented musicians, dancers, comedians, and bands, and always had great entertainment, and that was her passion. I just wanted to recognize her tonight because she was a good friend of mine and a good friend of many of us in this room. Thank you.
And I just want to mention too, don't forget her husband, Judge George Kerms as well, in this time period. So yeah. We definitely grieve for the family.
Yeah, her service was today, just for immediate family, and she's going to be buried in the church's columbarium at Our Lady of the Mountains. So,
okay, great. Thank you, sir. Mr. Benning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We got the gentleman going first tonight.
That's
unusual.
Just if the judge is watching, he's in my thoughts and prayers, him and his family. Great couple, great woman, great man. I just want to put out, it's a good time for public announcement. Second Tuesday at 17:30, Parks and Recs have our meeting. So any ideas people may have, any suggestions, you can always come, go to our Parks and Rec Commission and do a call to the public, maybe get on the agenda for things like activities in the parks, etc. And we also have a Cultural Diversity Commission that we're trying to fill. So if anybody has those same ideas of elaborate Christmases in the park, come on out. We were looking to do a Kris Kringles Mart, if anyone's German. Great time, great stuff.
No Germans here.
Me. But other than that, I want to wish people, 4-day weekend, be safe, enjoy your loved ones on a special occasion coming up. And for me, I just want to say to Tanya, happy birthday and happy Valentine's Day.
Okay, thank you, sir. We now move to Dr. Landry.
I have 10 bullet points I wanted to discuss tonight. No, I'm joking.
That's a professor joke at the end of the class.
Where did that come from?
So Friday, February 12th, which is tomorrow at 11:30, there is a Valentine's Day treat. Not Valentine's Day, but there's a Valentine's treat at the Salvation Army parking lot. There's going to be a giveaway, and it's courtesy of the Forerunners Outreach Ministry. So if anybody that you know might be interested or check it out yourself, it'll be going on tomorrow at 11:30, Salvation Army. And then also the Sierra Vista Animal Shelter. So the dog intake has been suspended due to precaution for parvo, but adoptions are still going on, so that's good news. And the dogs they've been full lately. So if you don't have a Valentine yet, get out there and check them out. They would make a perfect Valentine, but they are a big commitment. So if you can't do that, they do take donations all year long. There is a list of different donations: Purina dog and cat food, laundry soap, towels, blankets, poop bags, bleach, toys and treats. And then you can also sponsor an animal there too. So check with them and see. So if you can't take one home, you can always sponsor one. But I do double dog dare you to donate all of the things from their list before next month.
I love it.
Double dog day.
Good. I didn't count. Was that 10?
That was 10. That was 10, Mayor.
That was
10. We're going with 10, Mr. Mayor.
That was a 10 bullet point.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Mrs. Pacheco.
I have no comment.
Mrs. Humphrey, thank you.
Oh, no. Write it down. Write it down. This
I'm
is a
marking the day.
miracle.
I love that, Angelica, what you did. Okay. I'm really excited now, not just because of Todd's enthusiasm and I really love his ideas. I love the Christmas market and everything. But I'm more excited right now because Sierra Vista Unified School District had their emergency meeting and voted to return in-person school on March 1st.
Yay.
I may or may not be doing a happy dance on March 1st. I love my children. I love my children. But I'm very excited for that news, and I know it came after a long, thoughtful discussion. I was trying to listen to it before we came in today. So
I did not hear that.
Just have it.
I have been homeschooling for kids.
We're meeting concurrently, so.
Going full-time school. Yeah.
March 1st.
5 days a week.
Well, at least I don't know about the high school. I didn't see that yet.
Okay, so.
For the
Not
little
the
ones.
high school.
Look for the headlines in the
Probably
Sierra Vista
Herald has
Herald,
something.
right?
No, don't look to us for that.
That's it. Thank you. That's it from me.
All right, Madam Mayor Pro Tem Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say I'm sure Lovey and Liam are probably just as happy to get away from you as you are to get away from them. So
They're gonna love that.
and all the other kids and parents. So congratulations. And I just want to say again, thank you to Mr. Fisher, who's joining the Planning and Zoning. He has a great deal of experience previously from coming in and moving into Sierra Vista. So we look forward to working with him. And happy Valentine's Day. And to Dr. Landry, and I keep saying this over and over, I have a dog that started as a foster fell from the shelter, my little Dusty, who completely changed our lives. So I agree, go adopt. That's it.
That's it. Thank you, ma'am. I just have a couple quick comments. First, I want to thank the staff for all their hard work. We had two very difficult issues tonight that we had to decide. I think the staff performed excellently, and I appreciate the public coming up and sharing their thoughts as well. I think that's important for us to hear, even though in most cases we already read all the emails that are sent to us. We do have a holiday schedule on Monday, just a reminder, and normally people don't travel on President's Day good ways away, but please be safe and make sure you're ready to go to work on Tuesday. So, seeing nothing else before council, meeting is adjourned.